Welcome back to the dojo, y'all. Once again, glad you can make it. Glad you tuned in there. Today's topic of discussion. Well, before that, if you're new to the channel, hello there. I'm your host, Professor Hawk Sensei. Glad you could make it. The topic of discussion for today is alone versus lonely. Alone versus lonely. What's the difference between alone versus lonely? I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you. Let's say you're in the middle of a crowd, a big concert, but you came to the concert by yourself. You didn't come with any friends. You're surrounded by strangers. In other words, you're all alone. Or when you were young or a child and your parents maybe go for an outing, you go to the mall or you go to an amusement park and you start wandering around and you get lost. And then the next thing, you're all alone. There's people all around you, but you're alone. Right? There's people all around you, but you're all alone. Nobody you know is around you. Nobody familiar. And on the other hand, lonely, you can also be surrounded by people and still be lonely. Right? Lonely, or should I say loneliness, is more so a feeling or a mentality. You're lonely when you don't feel like you connect with anyone. You're lonely when you feel like no one relates to you. You're lonely when you've been outcast or ostracized or not chosen. You're lonely when you see everybody else in a loving, healthy relationship and you have no one. That's lonely or loneliness. Loneliness is more so a state of mind or frame of being. Alone, that's more so an act, or I guess you could say an adjective, because an adjective is a descriptive word. I've never been a master of language arts, so forgive me if I've misappropriated the terminology. Right? Being alone is sometimes what we need. I'm not a person who likes to be surrounded by people because it makes it difficult for me to think and focus on my own thoughts. Other people are more often than not a distraction in most cases. If I have something that I want to get done or want to get finished or accomplished, I don't want to surround myself with a million other people. It'll drown out my own thoughts. There'll be constant distractions. Right? For something like that, a project or something I'm working on, I'd rather be alone, by myself, physically. No one else is there. That's the difference between lonely and alone. When you're lonely, it doesn't matter if a million people are around you. Maybe there's someone in particular that would cure your loneliness. You know what I mean? But when you're talking about alone, you have to be, if it's in a physical sense, you have to be the only one there. In a mental sense, You drown out all distractions. You're alone with your thoughts. When you're in a group setting, it's hard to mentally be alone. When you're in a group setting, it's easy to spiritually be alone, feeling like you don't connect with anyone. But physically, you can't be alone in a group. That's just the perspective or the angle I wanted to deliver to you, right? Just because you're not surrounded by a million people, that doesn't make you lonely. Just because you're alone, that doesn't mean you have to be lonely. You can connect with people online if you so wish. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But one thing that I'm seeing is, as people age and people get older and y'all begin to understand life for its true value, I'm starting to see people understand, appreciate, and even enjoy their solitude. What is solitude? Solitude is being alone, away from it all. Solitude. Me, I've always liked solitude. I like being away from it all and away from everyone else. Why? Because I can focus, I can think, I can concentrate. I like to think. I really do. And when I'm surrounded by other people, that's difficult. Extremely difficult. Because you're subject to their thoughts and ideas. Especially when they begin to speak and ask you questions about their thoughts and ideas. Right? Now, I want to talk a little bit about loneliness. In the Bible, it said it's not good for man to be alone. It is not good for man to be alone. I believe the Bible was speaking in all frames of reference. Physically, spiritually, and mentally. Mentally, you don't want to be alone because you need to have other people to talk to and vent to and experience with. Because if you don't have anybody to challenge you or notify you, you'll be none the wiser. It's difficult to grow and sharpen your abilities and skills when you don't have anybody else to challenge you. Iron sharpens iron. You can't sharpen iron with stone. You can't sharpen iron with stone. You need something similar, of similar quality, of similar grade, right? To enhance, to sharpen. When you're alone, it's difficult to grow. Competition promotes growth. Even if you're not the winner or the victor, it helps you get better when you compete. It's impossible to compete when you're alone. When you're alone, you can't compete. You can only train. You can get better through training, but competing is where you really get to see where you stand. And you also get to see how far you need to go to acquire or achieve or accomplish your goal. That's the mental aspect as to why you don't want to be alone. Living in an echo chamber, you may lose touch with reality. That's the brunt of it. That's the gist of it. Physically, why you don't want to be alone? Because as human beings, we are social creatures. A man desires the touch of a woman, and a woman desires the presence of a man. You see how I did that? A man desires the touch of a woman, but a woman desires the presence of a man. So on both sides of the spectrum, both sexes appreciate the other being around. It don't have to be all the time, but every now and again, hey, I'm glad you came. And I'll say it again. A man appreciates the touch of a woman. It ain't always a physical touch. Sometimes it's just a woman's touch on something that you're doing or something that you hope to do. She's like, why don't you try it like this? A woman's touch. A man desires the touch of a woman and a woman's touch. And a woman desires the presence of a man. You being there, you being around, you being dependable. Right? As social creatures, we need one another to procreate. A man cannot procreate all on his own, and neither can a woman procreate all on her own. There needs to be a meeting of the sexes in order for life to continue to grow and flourish. That's why physically it's not good to be alone. Because if you are alone for an extended period of time, your bloodline will die out. That's why it's not good to physically be alone. And also it takes a village to raise a child. Just one. It takes multiple people playing their part and contributing to the raising and growing up of this young person. Teachers play a role, parents play a role, siblings play a role, the neighborhood children play a role, classmates, peers play a role, grandparents play a role, friends of the parents play a role. It takes a village to raise a child, right? And last but not least, spiritually. Why it is not good spiritually to be alone. When you don't have a higher power, when you don't have someone to confide into in a spiritual way, when you don't have anywhere to go to in the spiritual, the things that you feel in your soul, not just your heart and your mind, your soul, things that you feel deep down into your core, when you don't have a place to release your spiritual burdens, it will wear on you and tear you apart. Think of your spiritual burdens as black paint, right? And each time you take on more of these spiritual burdens, black paint is just smeared on you at some random place or point. Just say it's just thrown. Some entity or spirit just throws some black paint at you and it just splatters on your left shoulder. Then it happens again, it splatters on your right leg. Then it gets the right side of your cheek, and then on your back, and then on, you know what I mean? So on and so forth. Until you are no longer recognizable. You have been spiritually tainted by the afflictions that you've come across, by the obstacles that you weren't able to triumph against, from the people who have pushed you away or didn't want to accept you. It will contort, twist you, and turn you into something inhuman. It will bring out the worst in you when you don't have a way to release spiritually. Because yes, we are physical beings tied to this realm. But we also have a soul. And this soul that we have, it is linked and tethered to something beyond what we can physically see, taste, and touch and feel. It goes beyond that. And when your spirit is tainted, you don't feel right. You don't. You can connect with people on a physical level, on a mental level. But when you connect with people on a spiritual level, you will never feel alone. Because there's only so much you can do physically and mentally when it comes to connecting with something or someone else. But the spiritual connection is one that transcends anything mankind can explain or understand. This spiritual connection is a phenomenon that we have yet to even scratch the surface of. We really almost know nothing about it. But this I can guarantee you. It does humanity wonders of good when we have something that we can connect to spiritually. Something where we can cast our burdens upon. Something that we can believe in. Sometimes it's just having belief or having faith is enough to keep you going. Sometimes we just need something to look forward to keep us going. That's the purpose of spirituality. It gives our life meaning. It makes us feel like we have value and purpose. The spiritual connection. That's what it does. But when you don't have a spiritual or divine connection, what's the alternative? You can only have a worldly and earthly connection. That's as far as it can go. You have no ability to relate or connect with anything beyond this realm or anything that can transcend things that we can feel, taste, and touch or even understand. That's why it's not good to be alone spiritually. Because you'll never really see the reality. You'll never really taste how good something can be. You'll never really feel the warmth of the Creator. You'll never know what it means to experience the divine, to fellowship and commune in the Garden of Eden as Adam once did. What I'm saying here may be way too much for the vast majority of mankind or the world at large, but that's okay. It still needed to be said because I know there are plenty of people out there who understand exactly what I'm saying. So if you're someone who doesn't have a spiritual connection, I implore you to just cry out to the divine being that men have called God. Seek His face. Call on Him. Ask for Him to show Himself in your life. Ask, and it shall be given. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it it shall be open unto you. I hope you're waking up every day with a plan and a purpose and a smile. And if you're not waking up with a plan, purpose, and a smile, hey, at least you're waking up. I want to let you know that I appreciate you for watching this video in its entirety. I want to tell you to leave a like, just in case you forgot. I know you liked it, so let me remind you to like it. Share the video, because you're not selfish, you're not stingy, and you know there's other people who can really use this information. And last but not least, subscribe. So please subscribe to the dojo. You've came back too many times not to push that button. How many times I gotta tell you to subscribe? I do this every day. But yeah, that being said, Professor Hawk signing out. Hawk Sensei bid you adieu. Till next time, guys. Class is dismissed.